Hi, I'm Don Mathis, and welcome to the Comcast NBC Universal panel on Breaking the Mold. This is where we are going to challenge some outstanding guests who have come and joined us here to think about a question that we think about at our company a lot, and a lot of people are thinking about at many companies, which is the question of how do you actually make innovation work in the context of a large enterprise. We've all seen recently how large enterprises out of the valley, the large tech companies, have done a phenomenal job of continuing to reinvent themselves and to continue to keep innovating along the way. The rest of corporate America is focused on this issue. One of the things that I have in common with a lot of the panelists is that Comcast, amongst many companies of its sort, have looked very seriously at being able to bringing people in who have entrepreneurial experience, who have done startups, and we are trying to imbibe some of that spirit within our firm and our activities. It's an interesting question. There are some people who believe that the era of the startup, as we've understood it for the last 10 years, is coming to a little bit of a close. A lot of startups rely on data. Data is controlled by many of the very large digital players. So the question really comes down to if that is true, and probably a lot of people won't agree with that, but if that is true, do large companies have the opportunity or the ability to innovate in a way that is roughly consistent with or can capture some of the same spirit of what you can accomplish with a small company that is, say, venture-backed? So that as our broad theme, I'm going to turn to our panelists and allow them all to introduce themselves. I'll start with John O'Hara on the right. If you could say just a couple words about yourself and your background and what brings you here.
Sure. Well, thank you, Don, and thank everyone for having us. So my background, a little bit of diverse, but dealing with big corporations and companies is something I'm very familiar with, having been a Navy pilot for several years, worked in investment banking world at Goldman Sachs, and been at Comcast now for coming on 2 years. And to get to the question more poignantly, I think you have to have the mindset, and Comcast does, that we don't have a monopoly over good ideas. So if you believe in that and that, not invented here syndrome you stay away from, you allow these ideas to foster and grow in the natural manner that they can, and really allow or give the opportunity enough runway to mature and determine whether or not it's has a good end state. And I know we're limited on time, so I'll.
That's right. We've got by the way, and to my fellow panelists and to the audience, we've got about 20 minutes all in. I think we're a couple minutes into that already, so we'll keep it short and sweet here. Sitting to John's right is Harry Glazer. Harry, a couple quick introductory remarks?
Sure. Well, I'll start off with an apology. I'm a repenting lawyer. I ran the tech practice for a top 10 law firm.
Oh, no.
And that was fun. Yeah, that was fun for the .com days when everything busted. I said, I'm getting the hell out of here. And so I've been an entrepreneur and an investor for the past 15-plus years. And I'm here basically because of a company I started in conjunction with the National Association of Broadcasters called Sprocket. And the whole idea behind that is it's a global market development community for helping media entertainment companies collaborate with game-changing startups to bring new products to market through partnerships and investing. And kind of the way it works is our partners are kind of it's Google, Samsung, Verizon, Hearst, Fox, and startups from around the world. And really we get together 3 times a year at our corporate partners' offices to help with opportunities and challenges in the market.
Thank you, sir. And sitting to Harry's right, Teresa Phillips. Couple quick comments.
Sure. So I'm a proud Army veteran. In fact, we have 3 veterans here on the stage today.
Can you guess which 3?
I'm from Norfolk. It counts.
All right, fair enough.
So I started a career in tech a long time ago. Was an executive at both Time Warner and Yahoo. And then I founded a venture-backed startup. And now I'm with company V2 Solutions. And what we do is all things metadata for the digital supply chain with a focus on international. And so I've been on both sides within big companies trying to innovate, as well as being in startup and small companies and trying to work with enterprises.
Very good. And just so everyone knows, my own background is in the startup space. I've had 3 venture-backed and private equity startups over the course of the last 12 years. And in addition, I have a private equity background and have done some venture work as well. So I've seen it from both sides of that fence. This is the first time I've seen it, though, in a company of our size, which is obviously substantial. So, John, let me turn back to you. You had an interesting point when you were talking before. I would interpret your comments basically that you think it is possible, right? So, and this is sort of the main theme of my question. Let's start with the job number one here. Is it actually possible? Can an $80 billion company or a $50 billion company or Fortune 1000 company actually innovate in a way that can allow it to compete with a more dynamic or nimble venture-backed startup company?
Yeah, no, it's yeah, I have the fortunate seat right now to witness it and be a part of it, and it really starts from the leadership level. So the leadership level has to understand that we can't be, it's not steady as it goes. The world's moving quickly, and new ideas are coming to light every day. And if you're blind to that, you're going to get left behind. And so fortunately, again, we work in a company that's always open to good ideas, love to meet with new entrepreneurs, innovators, to see how those ideas may be brought to light by the support of Comcast. So basically taking those ideas and accelerating them with the backing of a large corporation.
Interesting question, interesting thought, and if I sort of think about that in a way, it's almost like we're saying if a company of Comcast's size is going to innovate, any large company, you're not going to do it by hiring some people, throwing them in a room and having them start to work on something, as much as you're going to find people who are doing leadership and entrepreneurship and get in there and back them, almost sort of more of a partnership support, almost an investing model as much as an operating model.
That's exactly right. It can't be passive. You bring it in-house and you give them all the support that they need. Again, Comcast has a great track record behind it, so knowing how to get those ideas to monetization or to growth is really important.
Harry, you've actually had a couple of experiences where you've gone from the small company rolled into a larger one and then continued to operate, and in your current role continuing to think about and how to operate within the context of a number of large players that you're advising from the outside. What do you see from your perspective on this question, sitting where you sit and seeing what you've seen?
Now, the biggest challenge I see is really from the corporate standpoint, and it really has to do with culture and coming down from the top. I mean, you can say I spend X millions of dollars on innovation. You can put somebody ahead of innovation. But if you're not allowing them to fail, and if the compensation doesn't match that and everybody's based on their quarterly returns, you got a real problem. So I see some of that in some of the organizations. Others I see it's real. But, if you keep doing what you did yesterday, you're done. I mean, Samson and Goliath, you're just done. These startups are too fast, they're too nimble, and what they do is they go for the crack, and they say, well, if I go in here, this other person has their business up here, I'll cannibalize it. They can't switch because they're breaking the crack, and, then it becomes, Kodak, BlackBerry, Blockbuster, you name it. And it's the meetings that we have are really interesting because the corporates that we have in the room, it's a diverse mix from Google to Fox to Samsung, you name it. And what's interesting is we have the CTOs in the room, the chief marketing officers in the room, and the chief revenue officers with the CEOs of startups from 20 different countries around the world. And they're all really Ferraris. What's wild is each shows each other a massive amount of respect. It's not demo day, it's not pitch day, it's collaborate, let's talk. And some of them are open conversations, some of them we have inside private rooms. So, but the biggest challenge I see is the corporate level. You really got to innovate from the top, and I think there's going to be pressure coming from boards to do that because they're going to have liability issues.
And you think that pressure is going to be increasing, not decreasing over the next 5 years, 3 to 5 years?
It has to, because look, in the media entertainment world, it's really changed. The idea used to be walled gardens. That's done. I mean, Apple can play that for a little while longer. I just don't see it happening. But all the media companies want to be tech companies. All the tech companies want to be media companies, and they're all doing the same thing. It's targeting the customer and monetizing it at a hyper super levels. And to do that, they each need each other. So you got to do the Microsoft model, which is partner and then kill each other. You know what I mean? It's collaborate. It's too hard otherwise.
Right. Teresa, you've seen it on both sides. You've seen some very large players in the cable space and in the media and entertainment space. You've also seen startups, and you've run your own. contrast the two experiences and, you know, and address that fundamental question. Can you replicate in the larger entity what you did in some of the smaller companies that you've been around or seen?
Sure. So I think from a large company's perspective, it's giving the innovators, if you will, autonomy and time and space in order to fail fast, if you will, because an entire corporate structure is based on being risk averse and avoiding failure. So a lot of times what we see is that there'll be a small group that's set apart, but then they'll be hamstrung by the corporate politics or structure in terms of too many dependencies on different groups, or not having the budget that they need in order to truly take a product to market. And then sometimes if it is successful, they'll want to bring it back in and merge it with an internal group, but there's a bit of not invented here going on, so it doesn't truly realize its potential. And then from the startup standpoint, it's so I have the relationships with the executives because I was one, so getting the meeting isn't the problem. The challenge is finding a sponsor, because a lot of what startups do benefits multiple groups within organizations, and they just don't make the decisions fast enough for us to be able to know if something is working or not working. So a 6-month decision cycle is life or death to a startup. And so I would say that it's really about decision making and getting in and just supporting the innovation and realizing that we seek to fail fast so we can learn from it and move on.
It's a really, really good point, and something that we've focused on in the group at Comcast NBC. It's almost providing a translation layer to the startups that we're trying to work with in various capacities, try to plug them into the machine to take advantage of the machine. It's one of the hardest things we confront. And, and I think we've heard this several times on the panel. If it's not driven down from on high, it's not going to happen. Everyone has a day job. Everyone's got to be focused on that day job. So we've made good progress, and again, we have a fast time frame here, so we're going to keep going through it pretty rapidly here. We've made good progress, but we haven't quite covered off on the final answer. So I'm going to ask you kind of lightning round final answer. Is it possible for a large company to innovate in a way that preserves relevance, given the dynamic nature of the economy right now and the disruption that we're seeing? And we'll go in reverse order this time. Yes, no, and feel free to then add a comment if you haven't already addressed it.
I think it's not only possible, but it's imperative. It is moving so quickly, and companies can't innovate these kernels of technology or whatever it is. They're going to have to acquire it from the outside, figure out how to build on it, and integrate it in order to survive.
Sir?
Yeah. No, I would agree with that. And this is not political, but it's reality. The whole idea with inclusion, if you really want to target all these different audiences, men, female, Hispanic, veterans, you damn well better have them at senior level people making decisions, because how do a bunch of white males know what all these different groups want in hip-hop and others? You just don't know. So it's the new paradigm for the bottom line. It's not new. It's always been around. But I'm just telling you, technology and consumer habits are moving so fast, and if you do what you did yesterday, you're dead.
John?
Yes, and again, slightly biased because I get to see it every day in action, but I think it really comes down to the leadership having full buy-in, supporting, because they're the ones that are going to have to get up and speak about it. But one part, too, as well, is there's not enough emphasis given to the brand and reputation around this, and so when you have conversations with entrepreneurs and startups, you're not there to pick their brain. I think we talked about this a little last night, but you're actually there with the intent to figure out ways that we could work together. So if you're there picking their brain and they see their ideas come to light without their input,
Right.
It's only going to happen a few times before the entrepreneurs and innovators no longer want to work with you.
Fair point. Another comment that just came up. So we've all seen this many times, and if you've been in the tech industry, you've certainly focused on this. Exits are much more commonly an exit by selling your company to a large enterprise than they are by going public, certainly in the current climate, and that's been true for many, many years. Do large companies in general this is the build buy question. Do they get it right? Or if you buy somebody and everyone's just hanging around until the earnout's done in 12 months and then they split, is that a failure? How do you think about that question? And open question, whoever wants to Roger up for it.
I'll kick it off because that
Yep.
earnout thing. So we're entrepreneurs, we're visionary. We do this because we want to see our vision realized. And a lot of times we will sell or seek a strategic partner because we can take it to the next level. And we want that, the scale, the brand, the distribution, whatever have you. So it's, in our minds, we don't think, let's sit here and rest, invest, and get out of it. We get super excited about it and think, how can we make 1 + 1 11?
Fair enough. Any other thoughts?
I'll follow back on that. So I agree. If you talk to any entrepreneur that's really passionate about what they're doing, and most of them are for the right reason, it's not the money, it's their baby, and they want to change the world because there are a lot easier ways to make money, okay? And there are a lot easier ways to have less stress and have your weekends and family and vacation. It's just because you're always responsible for so many people. So the biggest challenge with companies is, most companies that get acquired, it's a failure because of the culture internally, that different chemistries and different interests. But again, I'll go back to like public companies. It's the bottom line, looking quarter to quarter. And I don't care if the company is doing $1 billion. How is that going to move the needle, and what is going to happen? And there are politics involved. So it really does go back. It has to start at the top.
Got it. John, you got 1 minute.
Yeah, I would agree that these entrepreneurs, when we talk to them and discuss the opportunity to come be acquired by a large corporation like Comcast, they're excited because it accelerates their vision. Where it gets lost is if they are left alone to try to navigate a big corporation and where they find answers. And that leads to frustration, and ultimately they just wait for their earnout. And fortunately, I think we take great pride in making sure that we not hold the hand, but we allow them to understand the way the corporation operates and make sure that we're part of that vision and make sure it's successful.
Terrific. Well, we're just about out of time, so we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. I want to thank all of my panelists for participating here. The question was, can you innovate as a large company? And I think what we've heard here with people who've had direct experience, both being with small companies, being with entrepreneurial companies, as well as with large companies, the answer is unequivocally yes, but it does depend on the large company being committed to that innovation, making it happen, driving it from the top, and I think very importantly, embracing the cultural element to it, embracing the culture of innovation that the startup brings in the first place, and making sure that you can preserve that and nurture it within the confines of the larger corporation. It's not something that's just a nice to have, it is a must have. And with that, thank you very much, and I appreciate your time, panelists.
Thank you.